we see Moon Sangtai, an autistic man who seems to be having a rough day trying to work with the noise of the machinery. The manager of this unit asks his brother to send him to a special school, and Sangtai is worried that his little brother is mad. The younger brother is Moon Kang-tae, played by Kim Soo-hyun, who is not angry and calmly packs up his brother's things. As they leave, the two talk about buying lunch. Two adorable brothers indeed. We meet Ko Moon-young, acclaimed international children's book author, who is anything but child-friendly herself. She sits at her favorite restaurant not for the food, but to steal the sharp knives she does. Her boss, CEO of the publishing company Lee Sang-min, pleads for her to dress more pleasantly in her entirely black garb for a children's book reading function. Her demeanor is somehow really appealing to me. I can already tell her character will be a special one. He is the assistant in a psychiatric hospital with many wounds all over his body, accompanied with an awesome shirtless scene, haha. A new patient, who attempted to kill his daughter and himself as he was suffering from anxiety disorder, is brought into the psychiatric hospital, while Moon-young is on a trip to the reading event in the very same hospital. We see that Moon-young's father is admitted in the hospital with severe dementia and other problems. Nurse Ju-ri from his hospital asks Moon-young to sign the papers, which she doesn't as she considers her father dead. Ouch. Ju-ri is asked by the head nurse to personally go get the signatures. Colleagues make fun of her when she asks for an extra day as well for the journey, saying she's about to visit her boyfriend. She either has a boyfriend or the Moon Kang-tae guys, because we all know a love triangle is for sure. As the reading event is being set up, we find out that Sang-tae is a huge fan of Moon-young, and Kang-tae promises him that he will get her autograph. Their first meeting is certainly no fairy tale, however. Kang-tae asks Moon-young to snuff out a cigarette, which is pulled back and forth until it is lit up and ends up in Kang-rae's coffee cup. Moon-young is literally a badass here, and I'm growing more fond of her. And I've noticed ever since the drama My Love from Another Star that Kim Soo-hyun can play the poker-faced, patient, I don't care act so well. We also come to know that Kang-tae switches hospitals every year. Meanwhile, the patient admitted earlier this day tries to find and attack his daughter, but is stopped by Moon-young, who calls him a freak amongst other things. The man strangles Moon-young, to which she first smiles and then doesn't. And we see a similar thing having happened to her with her father. That explains it. She is saved by Kang-tae, but she takes in her knife and tries to stab him, but he holds on to it, bleeding for quite some time. After that, Kang-tae loses his job, as the management feels someone should take responsibility for the ruckus, and Kang-tae was bound to leave anyway. Whatever it may be, that's unfair. Kang-tae is picked up by his friend Jae-soo, but realizes he forgot to get the autograph and tries to fake one. But Sang-tae has a temper tantrum and hides in the closet. Meanwhile, Ju-ru gets the signatures from Moon-young after being taunted by her quite a bit. They also happen to be schoolmates. That night, Moon-young thinks about how pretty Kang-rae's eyes were. I think so too, LOL. And Kang-tae reads one of her books about how a man didn't find happiness even after removing his painful memories, because ultimately, our pain, no matter how big it is, makes us who we are. That night, Sang-tae has a nightmare about butterflies, which means one thing, it's time to move again. Day after, Kang-tae gets called and goes to the publishing company, only to meet Moon-young there as well. They enter into a fierce staring battle and have a flashback of a boy chasing a girl and getting saved from drowning. Moon-young asks him if he was scared by the girl, to which he responds that he loved the girl. Then we see a flashback of a young Moon-young staring at a young Kang-tae, standing outside her balcony of an eerie but majestic house. A short flashback shows Kang-tae drowning when he was young, and Moon-young plucking flower petals to decide whether she should help or not. She eventually saves him, and we are back to the present, where Kang-tae talks about looking into her eyes, until the CEO guy interrupts and mentions how Kang-tae came here to get her autograph. A little bothered, but Moon-young signs an autograph to her book Zombie Kid, lovely title for a children's book, and as Kang-tae is leaving, Moon-young asks him for his background information since she likes him and would like to keep him. In the novel, Moon-young has requested Sang-tae attend her book signing, to which Jae-soo agrees and accompanies Sang-tae to the signing. Meanwhile, Ju-ri arrives to see Jae-soo, and just like we thought, Ju-ri has a humongous fat crush on Kang-tae. She later visits Kang-tae at his workplace. They are all from the same hometown, which is when we see a flashback. Kang-tae and Sang-tae's mother were murdered, and the only witness was Sang-tae, who kept saying, "The butterflies did it." Knowing that they may be separated by the police, the two run away far from the butterflies. So that's why they move when he sees the butterflies. Juru mentions vacancy in her hospital and a rental space in her home, but Kang Tae rejects it. That night, he searches the hospital Juri mentions and sees that there is good treatment for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and mulls over it. The next day, Jae-soo is drunk and Kang Tae was obliged to bring his brother to the book sign event. In a sub-scene, it is revealed that Do Hui Jae, a best-selling mystery author who has died, is Moon Young's mother. At the event, Sang Tae approaches a kid wearing dinosaur costume because of his love for them and gets pushed by the kid's father, going into a full-fledged panic attack. Kang Tae rushes in and covers him with his jacket to calm down, which is when Moon Young steps in and pulls the dad's hair and asks him to say he's sorry, much to Kang Tae's shock. When Snag Tae composed himself in the storeroom, Min Young got into a scuffle with an obnoxious journalist, to which Kang Tae stepped in and taught her the butterfly hug to get herself composed, to which she said preferred him to hug her and be her safety pin, allowing her to be the controller. As predictable, Kang Tae said she was born like this and cannot be changed, and then leaves. That night, Kang Tae asks his brother if they can move back to his hometown, to which his brother agrees, and they finish packing. We then see that Kang Tae is now working along with Du Ri. I bet she's thrilled. Would that stop Moon Young, though? No, it won't. We have a voiceover about a girl who was always in her red shoes and dancing in it, that even after an executioner cut off her feet, the feet continued to dance in the red shoes. The story tells us that nothing can be severed. By the end of the movie, Moon Young meets up with Kang Tae in the hospital in their hometown, wearing her red shoes. Moon Young has arrived back at her hometown and meets up with Kang Tae. She also agrees to take a literature class at the hospital as part of the extra therapy programs, but in reality, she has her eyes on Kang Tae and wants him. Moon Young returns to the home where she spent her childhood, a home built during Mum Young's birth by her father, as a place for her mother to continue her writing. Kang Tae, meanwhile, stays on the rooftop of Juri's home. As Moon Young gets acclimated to the cold and spookish house, we see a legend of the Sleeping Beauty being narrated, and soon Moon Young is face to face with a woman, a ghost, or a figment of her imagination. I do not know who says that she may have a prince that will save her, but the ghost will ensure the prince doesn't survive. What is it about this story that actually changes it into a horror story? Poor Moon Young. I think it has to do with her past and condition. The next day, Moon Young comes for her first literature class, and a new VIP patient is admitted. Gi-do, the mayor's son, who is also running for elections and has been experiencing manic episodes. There is quite an animated depiction of how he perceives his manic episodes. It's pretty interesting to watch. Moon Young is still melancholic in getting close to Kang Tae, but he does not really care at all. Meanwhile, Sang Tae goes to the hospital, and Director Oh asks him to paint a mural on the entrance of the hospital wall as part of therapy. Kang Tae later sees that his brother is collecting money for a camper van so that they won't have to move houses every year and get rebuked by their landlords. Well, both Kang Tae and I am touched by the plan of Sang Tae. The next day, Gi-do, buck naked, escapes from the hospital and comes to Moon Young, who kidnaps him. She is eventually chased by Kang Tae in a funny and speedy chase, finally ending up at Gi-do's father's election campaign. Kaido explains to Moon Young and Kang Tae that all he ever wanted was to be treated exactly as his siblings were. Gi-do confesses that he was never as great or smart as his siblings were to begin with, and as such, this is the only time that he has ever been treated differently than his siblings. Meanwhile, his father is bragging about shutting down mental institutes, while his own son has a condition. Kang Tae looks at Moon Young in thought. I must admit that it brings tears. In an epilogue, we see how Gi-do recounts his whole chase story, but it was just him running around in the hospital, and later on a treadmill, and he ended the story once his energy wore off. Kang Tae is wondering whether he should have fun with Mum Young after all, which makes her shocked for a second. As Gi-do is taken away, after being hit by his mother, in an affectionate manner according to him, Kang Tae has a flashback, but things seem to get worse for Kang Tae, who remembers being slapped for leaving his brother alone, which led to the beating up of Sang Tae. Another rainy day, his mom walks with an umbrella, ensuring Sang Tae is dry and well, apparently forgetting about Kang Tae. Flash ahead to that scene the day after their father's death anniversary, where she reminisces about how she stays alive to see Sang Tae grow up well, and how Kang Tae was born to take care of Sang Tae. Ah, I see where this is going. Poor Kang Tae. As Kang Tae and Mum Young head back, she says she is there for him if he wants to run off someday, which he ignores as usual. However, After some time into the story, when they actually start talking about her father, he suddenly walks off, leaving her all alone. At the hospital, many seem to concur with Juri when she says that the situation would have been worse and she should not have come, had Moon-young been really the one to blame, but Director Oh wants to wait this out. We see another instance at Moon-young's home where she sees her mother. It was her mother, the ghost in the last episode, combing her hair and calling her the best gift she has. The next scene is of her mother, dead in a room, blood seeping out of the door. What really happened to Moon-young? Guido's father arrives asking for a settlement over all the bad press he now has over the fiasco with Guido. Kang Tai is called, and they argue, leading to Kang Tai being slapped on the face. Not exactly a great day so far. In the meantime, he finds Sang Tai spending time with Mum Young. Angry, she tells her to get away and calls her an empty shell, along with other things. Ouch. I guess both of their days just aren't any better. Moon-young eventually walks her father, who asks her why she's alive and strangles her. She takes it in without acting back until the hospital staff intervene. She then starts walking, mind blank, and Kang Tae sees her walking while he returns via bus, and although intrigued, doesn't stop. That night, he reads Ko Moon-young's book, The Zombie Kid, about how a mother had a son who had no feeling but just a zombie-like hunger. She spent many years killing livestock secretly to feed her son, until an epidemic came. She eventually cut off her own arms and legs, until nothing but a torso remained. Having nothing but herself to give, the zombie kid hugs her and says she is warm. What was it the kid wanted? The hunger, or his mother's love and warmth? As Kang Tae remembers how he held on to his mother, hoping for some life himself, he remembers Moon-young. He hops on Haidu's motorcycle and drives through the rain looking for Moon-young, and finds her walking in the rain, barefoot. He meets her, gives his jacket, and she falls into him to an embrace. Kang Tai and Moon-young meet under a downpour, the rain pouring heavily around them. As Moon-young, emotionally vulnerable and tired, leans into him, Kang Tai hesitantly wraps his arms around her in an awkward hug. The scene is tender, if a bit clumsy, as Kang Tae's natural inclination is to comfort her, even though he's unsure of how to navigate his own feelings. There's something touching about this moment, a mix of affection and hesitation, that captures the depth of their evolving relationship. Kang Tai, who's usually reserved, is beginning to show that he cares for Moon-young in his own quiet, cautious way. As the rain continues to fall, Kang Tai offers to drop Moon-young off at a nearby motel so she can spend the night there. However, in their haste, they both realize that neither of them brought their wallets. With no other options, they end up at Kang Tae's small apartment. The situation is unexpected and slightly uncomfortable, especially considering their complicated feelings for each other. To avoid any awkward questions from Sang Tai, Kang Tai quickly lies to his brother, telling him there's a problem with a broken tap, which gives him an excuse to spend the night alone with Moon-young. His plan is simple: spend the night together, but send her away early in the morning so that Sang Tai remains unaware of her presence. The atmosphere between Kang Tai and Moon-young is charged with unspoken tension. There's a mixture of affection, uncertainty, and the weight of their past experiences. Both are trying to navigate their growing bond, even as they struggle with their individual traumas and emotional barriers. The night is a quiet moment of intimacy, though they both know it's temporary. Kang Tae plans for this to be a brief encounter, a night spent in each other's company before life moves on as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, eerie events begin to unfold at the hospital, creating an unsettling backdrop to the quiet tension between Kang Tae and Moon-young. One of the male nurses, working late at night, becomes frightened when he hears the sound of someone humming a creepy song. As he investigates, he catches a glimpse of a mysterious entity walking through the hospital halls. The figure's presence is ghostly and disturbing, sending chills down the nurse's spine. Yet when he tries to look closer, the entity seems to vanish into the shadows. At the same time, we are shown a disturbing scene with Moon-young's father, who is still institutionalized. Late at night, while he's resting, a dark, menacing figure appears beside him, creeping closer and closer. Without warning, the figure reaches out and begins to strangle him. Moon-young's father struggles against the invisible force, fear and panic consuming him. Just as he's about to lose consciousness, his roommate awakens, startled by the commotion. But when the roommate looks around, the dark figure has completely disappeared, as if it was never there. The contrast between Kang Tae and Moon-young's quiet, emotionally charged night and the sinister occurrences at the hospital creates a sense of looming danger. While Kang Tae and Moon-young are focused on their personal issues, something darker and more ominous is brewing in the background, threatening to disrupt their fragile peace. Don't tell us we are going to get a dose of the supernatural here. The next day, Ju-ri takes the delivered milk up to Kang Tae's apartment after her night shift, probably as an excuse to see him, and sees Moon-young wearing Kang Tae's clothes, obviously after spending a night. One thing leads to another, and the two women bicker, and everyone in the home finds out about Moon-young starting the night. Kang Tae angrily sends her away with money and apologizes profusely to Sang Tae for lying, while Ju-ri cries in bed to her mom, seeing how close Kang Tae and Moon-young are. A good old love triangle. Meanwhile, the publishing company has nearly gone broke after compensating all of Moon-young's issues, which leads to them begging her to write more. A patient at the hospital approaches Kang Tae and mentions how he is perfect for her daughter. Sang Tae, meanwhile, starts painting the mural, while director Oh discreetly tries to find out about the butterflies that haunt Sang Tae, the clue to their mother's death. Moon-young meets up with Sang Tae and takes him back to her mansion, where she makes him sign a contract as being the illustrator for her next book. Kang Tae finds his brother is at her place and rushes over. At this point, the Rapunzel story is heard and summarized, where a princess lives within a castle awaiting her prince. As Moon-young waits at the balcony, we see a flashback of a young Kang Tae coming with a bouquet, and Moon-young rushes downstairs only to bump into her mom. We next see her going to Kang Tae and asking him to leave, rudely. We're back in the present, and the last scene takes place when present-day Kang Tae is standing outside the gate, looking up at Moon-young sitting in the balcony. Moon-young realizes that Kang Tae is the boy from when she was young, and is angered that he knew it and hid it from her. She requests him to be together with her and take care of her. He would say that he is tired of taking care of everyone else. An angry Kang Tae tries to take back Sang Tae, but he has the contract taken seriously and proclaims he will stay at the mansion and that he decides for himself and shoves Kang Tae away. As Moon-young asks him to make a decision for himself, we see a flashback. A happy Kang Tae comes home to his mother to show the taekwondo belt he earned, only to find her furious. She is angry Kang Tae left Sang Tae alone as he got beat up. An angry outburst from Kang Tae, saying he wants to live for himself and wants Sang Tae gone, makes him run away with Sang Tae chasing him. After fighting round, the brothers make up and start playing around, all while being watched by the young Moon-young. Suddenly, the ice cracks and Sang Tae falls. Kang Tae saves him, but falls in instead and is left to drown as Sang Tae, scared, runs away. It's at this point we see a scene we saw earlier, the young Moon-young counting petals to decide whether to save him. She actually lands on the petal telling to not save him, but saves him anyway. Poor Kang Tae. After being convinced by Ju-ri's mom, he decides to move in with Sang Tae as well. Moon-young realizes that Kang Tae is the boy from when she was young and is angered that he knew it and hid it from her. She requests him to be together with her and take care of her. He would say that he is tired of taking care of everyone else. An angry Kang Tae tries to take back Sang Tae, but he has the contract taken seriously and proclaims he will stay at the mansion and that he decides for himself and shoves Kang Tae away. As Moon-young asks him to make a decision for himself, we see a flashback. That day, a patient, Eunja, who suffers from hallucination, meets up with Moon-young. The patient thinks she is the wife of a wealthy man, but is actually a single mom who lost her daughter to a car crash. She goes to Moon-young and starts saying she's her mom and that she has set up Kang Tae. Moon-young is stunned and is deeply affected the whole day. Eunja approaches again, which leads to Moon-young screaming at her and causing her to faint. That night, Moon-young goes to the basement and reminds herself of her mother. The ghostly figure haunts her in sleep later that night, asking as to why she brought him here. We see that it's more of a figment of her imagination, and we see her paralyzed and choking with tears. The voice echoes, and Kang Tae hears and comes inside and shakes her. She begs him to leave as she clings to him. He takes this as a plea to stay and gathers her into his arms while trying to comfort. Poor Moon-young. I can imagine how it must have been for her, living like that. Kang Tae decides to take the day off to take care of Moon-young as she is running a slight fever. Meanwhile, the people at the hospital watch the CCTV and see Moon-young is responsible for the patient fainting, and everyone agrees to have Moon-young out except Director Oh, who wants to hear her out. Moon-young was fighting herself because she wanted to shave her head, as it was said was like her mom's, but could not do so. Sang-in tried to drag her back when Kang Tae stepped and stopped him. Finally, they go out for some fresh air, lunch, and walk, where they bond and become close. Ju-ri and Sang, in meanwhile, meet drinking over Moon-young and Sang. In eventually carries a drunk Ju-ri home. Back at the hospital, Director Oh asks Kang-tae what really happened between Moon-young and the patient, as he knows they are close and live together. We come to know that Moon-young's mother disappeared once, and years later was declared dead, although some people speculate she is still alive. Director Oh goes through his sessions with Moon-young's dad and finds that his wife used to sing, "Oh My Darling Clementine," the same song the hospital ghost sings. Shivers. We see Kang-tae break down at night thinking about how his mom treated him as he shares a drink with Jae-soo. I end up breaking my heart while seeing him cry seriously. That night, Kang-tae gives a nightmare catcher doll which he made for Sang-tae and has labeled Mang-tae to Moon-young. We get some flashbacks as he weeps into that day at Sang-tae. For that day, he was left in the rain, and his mother and Sang-tae were calling him to squeeze in. And when he went to sleep holding mom's sweater, without knowing, his mother turned around and hugged him too. Situations do make it tough for people, and funny how different people would remember the same incident. I guess it depends on how we look at it, what we give importance. The next day, we see the tale of the cheerful dog being mentioned, how the dog was tied up and cheerful all day long, but at night was sad and whimpered a lot. When asked why he couldn't cut the leash and run away, he says he has been tied too long and doesn't know how to be free. We saw Moon-young cut off her hair, cutting her own leash. When Kang-tae comes back, she mentions how she cut off her leash. Kang-tae then cuts her hair for her to clean it up and see a short-haired Moon-young. The two smile at each other. The day at work is an unpleasant beginning, as she tells her friend Sang-tae that her long hair was even better than this. As he arrives at work, he hears that Moon-young's father had a seizure, and upon viewing the CCTV footage, Director Oh asks Kang-tae to bring in patient Park Ok-ran, an aggressive patient who often causes confusion, and one time even slapped Ju-ri. Director Oh asks if she's been walking around the hallways and humming a tune, as he saw the patient hear that and have a seizure, and she scathingly remarks she ain't no ghost. Kang-tae also notices something's off about her. Meanwhile, we have some emotional conflicts. Sang-tae worriedly looking at how close Kang-tae and Moon-young have become, and Kang-tae's jealousy when Moon-young gets too close with a male fan of hers. That night, Sang-tae and Moon-young have an almighty row on who Mang-tae actually belongs to, finally tearing it to pieces. Kang-tae takes the pieces and repairs them. He then approaches Sang-tae saying that he no longer needs Mang-tae for protection, but Moon-young does, and Sang-tae allows him to give it to her. Kang-tae also discovers that two patients are in a relationship, which is against the rules and might need one of them transferred. Seeing their sadness, he asks them to focus on their recovery so that they can continue this outside the hospital. We also see Kang-tae pondering over his feelings over Moon-young a lot too. That day, an ex-husband who was abusive to a patient arrives and starts screaming, to which Moon-young intervenes and gets slapped. Just when she was about to be attacked again, Kang-tae comes in and punches him to the ground. He is eventually stopped and he checks in on Moon-young. He eventually gets suspended and walks off, but is shown to be smiling his heart out. He walks over to Moon-young and asks her if her offer to run away from it all with him is still on the table. The two smile at each other. The enthusiastic Kang-tae, who asked Moon-young to run away with him, is not so enthusiastic anymore, as he kind of looks like he regrets his decision. I guess the adrenaline wore off. Moon-young plans a vacation abroad and realizes he has no passport. She then plans a night away, and he says he can't due to Sang-tae. Angry, Moon-young abandons him on a road and goes. Meanwhile, Arom's family has decided to take her to the States, now that her ex-husband has found her in the hospital, much to her boyfriend's sadness. Kang-tae asks Jae-soo to take care of Sang-tae for a day and decides to go with Moon-young. Meanwhile, Moon-young and Sang-tae become best friends due to their likeness in their thinking. As the couple talk more deeply, we are almost going to get a kiss when a literal deer brays in the corner and interrupts them. Meanwhile, we hear from Do-hwan that his wife had killed someone. Oh God, don't let her be the butterflies. And that he was sure he had killed his wife, but he has his doubts now. What exactly happened in that mansion? Park Ok-ran, meanwhile, acts rashly to our head nurse, arousing suspicion. Before they go out, Kang-tae meets up with Director Oh, who thinks that something was amiss between Moon-young and her mother. Meanwhile, Moon-young talks to Sang-tae and asks him if he has ever hated Kang-tae, which leads him to thinking. Now, on their day out, they are having some fun until they reach the lodgings and see that Arum and her boyfriend are together. The couple, being afraid of them eloping and wanting to bring the patient back to the hospital, decides to book a room in the motel too. Moon-young says she is best friends with Sang-tae, while Kang-tae says that is the one thing their mother wanted, one true friend for Sang-tae. Moon-young then tells the story between her and Ju-ri. Ju-ri was often bullied and had no friends, and Moon-young bullied everyone else and had no friends. These two then became friends, but as Ju-ri became friendly with others, Moon-young tried to scare those kids off and eventually lashes out at Moon-young, and they have been like this ever since. If this is all there is, these girls can make up. That night, as the couple spend a sweet night looking at the moon, Kang-tae and Moon-young have a very different night inside. No, don't have your thoughts all wound up. Kang-tae is just trying his best to control Moon-young, but realizes he is slowly losing control. While Sang-tae wakes up alone from a nightmare wanting Kang-tae, the couple have gotten quite close. And what do you know, Jung-tae didn't elope, but instead went back into the hospital for remedy, and went out and came out and resumed living with Ariam outside the ward. Moon-young couldn't understand why people broke up for love, but is when Kang-tae says that can happen. I smell something ominous coming, guys. As Jung-tae is returned to the hospital, gossip starts to fly around that Kang-tae will marry Moon-young, and it reaches Sang-tae. As Kang-tae comes to apologize for being out of touch and his phone being off, Sang-tae screams he is lying and that he knows he wanted Sang-tae dead. Then Sang-tae proceeds to scream throughout the whole hospital that his brother attempted to kill him and will, which leads to Kang-tae falling to shock and shaking into tears. If Kim Soo-hyun made me cry with his soft tears in the previous episode, he has me now bawling my eyes out at this scene. I can't take it, you guys. Poor Kang-tae. The scenes depict Moon-young silently watching in a tearfall, and so the episode comes to an end. Sang-tae is put under sedation to calm down, and Kang-tae stays away from Moon-young and trips himself, saying it's all his fault for thinking he can have fun when his priority should have been his brother. While Sang-tae slowly calms down, he gets a book from someone with a note. The younger brother kills the older brother. Now I want to punch the person who did this. It also looks like the head nurse is keeping an eye on Park Ok-ran, as she should. That woman is nothing but suspicious. Moon-young visits again, and this time Kang-tae breaks it clean. He says he wants her to stay away. She says she won't, because like he said, she can see it in his eyes that although he says he wants her to go, his eyes are asking her to stay. He finally blows up saying she is nothing but a firecracker that is over now and leaves. She runs after him, shouting angrily that she's a time bomb, not a firecracker. I swear my heart cannot take in all this sadness. Sang-tae has now mostly calmed down, and the head nurse gifts him a huge dinosaur doll which makes super happy, and he starts sharing his theories on Dookie the dinosaur. He eventually starts talking about Dooley's mother, and the nurse asks if his mother was good. Sang-tae replies she was a good mother to him, but not to Kang-tae. Oh, I'm literally ooh-wooing all over this episode. Well, while the brothers made up, Ju-ri arrived in the mansion and was gathering their belongings. She and Moon-young drank some wine, and Ju-ri drunkenly screamed and hit Moon-young, and Sung-in just happened to arrive just in time to whisk her away. Needless to say, it was a crude attempt by Kang-tae so that the girls will make up too. The next day, Ju-ri realizes that she drunk shouted at Kang-tae too, and he has now started talking formally to her. Kang-tae seems to be running a light fever. I don't know if it's the whole pandemic thing, but COVID-19 just jumped on my mind, but that's not it. So let's not deviate. The day at the hospital, Ok-ran sings the song that makes Dae-hwan mad and strangulates her. When asked later, she says she knew nothing, but Director Oh informs Kang-tae also that she might be his wife. That day she goes to Ju-ri's house for seaweed soup, at her birthday. She tries to reconcile with Sang-tae, although he's not listening much either. She returns and places the flowers Kang-tae gave in water. Back at the hospital, Kang-tae sees all the texts Moon-young sent along with the one that says, "Today is an important day." When he comes out, he sees one of the attenders bleeding from his head and says that Park Ok-ran took him out saying she lost something and hurt him on the head. The nurses realize she is missing, which is when Kang-tae realizes where she must have gone. As he rushes over to the mansion, Park Ok-ran meets up with Moon-young, bursts a cracker, and wishes a happy birthday. The story of a lonely boy who screamed lies all along but didn't have anyone when he was actually in need. The tale of the boy who cried wolf plays in the background. As Kang-tae rushes toward the mansion, his heart pounding with fear and urgency, Park Ok-ran unexpectedly enters the scene. Calm and composed, she steps inside and announces that she's there because she thought Moon-young might be feeling lonely. OK Ran then reveals that she is a huge admirer of Moon Young's mother, a strange and unsettling declaration given the dark history of Moon Young's family. Her presence feels menacing, casting a shadow over the room. Things take a more alarming turn when Ok Ran grabs one of Moon Young's pens and refuses to let go, tightly gripping it even as Moon Young tries to take it back. In a disturbingly familiar act, Ok Ran ends up cutting Moon Young's hand with the pen, eerily mimicking the way she had previously harmed Kang Tae. This moment of violence leaves Moon Young shaken, as it not only causes physical pain, but also evokes memories of past traumas. Shortly after Ok Ran leaves, Kang Tae finally arrives, his concern evident. Without hesitation, he embraces Moon Young, pulling her into a tight hug. The suddenness of the gesture surprises her, especially considering that not long ago, Kang Tae had been keeping his distance, conflicted by his feelings for her.
The warmth and comfort of the hug seem to dissolve the tension between them, and in that intimate moment, the two share a sense of relief and healing.
And as their conversation flows, the weight of their problems seems to fade away. Their connection deepens, and they quite literally melt into each other's arms, finding solace in their shared vulnerability. The following day, Kang Tae opens up about a long-buried secret, the traumatic incident involving his mother that has haunted him and Sang-tae for years. He explains why they've been forced to move every year, driven by a mysterious fear of butterflies. This fear, rooted in a deep trauma, now becomes clearer as we see the incident from Sang-tae's point of view. On the day their mother died, a woman wearing a butterfly-shaped brooch approached Sang-tae after the tragedy. In Sang-tae's memory, this woman seemed threatening, as if she held some power over him, and her presence has been a source of his fear ever since. Kang Tae finally acknowledges that he needs to remain by Sang-tae's side to protect him from this haunting memory. However, this time, his approach is different. Instead of focusing solely on his brother's needs, Kang Tae makes it clear to Moon Young that he wants her to be by his side as well, if she's willing. Moon Young, moved by his words and by the journey they've been through, agrees without hesitation. Later, at the hospital, the head nurse instructs Kang Tae to remove all of Park Ok Ran's belongings, as it's clear she won't be returning. As Kang Tae cleans up, he notices several paper cards left behind by Ok Ran, each one bearing strange markings and things crossed out. Though he can't quite make out what's written, the cards seem ominous, hinting at something darker lurking beneath the surface. This discovery leaves Kang Tae unsettled, as it raises questions about Okiran's true intentions and her connection to the past traumas that continue to shape their lives. Could it be those cryptic messages about the little brother killing the elder brother that was sent to Sang-tae? Kang Tae continues and informs the director of the butterflies to facilitate his treatment process for PTSD. Meanwhile, Moon Young is lurking behind Sang-tae, trying to get his love and affection, but he has no success. Kang Tae tells him to have patience and slowly win his heart. That night, as Sang-tae is babysitting Dooley, Kang Tae asks how Gil-dong lets complete strangers move into his house. To this question, Sang-tae says that Gil-dong was just an adult that time. Kang Tae feels sorry for him and instead asks gently, "Are you an adult?" To which Sang-tae claims he is. Later that afternoon, the brothers brawl in a fistfight because Kang Tae was livid with Sang-tae for giving up on painting the butterfly that Director Oh wanted. Not that either of them took the situation seriously, however, because, in some ways, the brothers were only trying to get something out of each other. That night, Kang Tae has a midnight date with Moon Young, where he talks about his dreams, including having an ordinary school. We see an alternate reality of Moon Young and Kang Tae in school obviously having a crush on each other, and an office worker, Sang-tae, egging them on. This scene made me cry, sniff, sniff. That night, Sang-tae sees Kang Tae sleep talk saying he likes her. He then starts smiling. Sang-tae looks at the chart of emotions on the wall and realizes that his brother is happy. The next day he takes Kang Tae to lunch, slices up his fried cutlet and pays for the meal like an adult would. Moon Young follows him for the same treatment, saying she wants a brother like him. Initially, Sang-tae walks off, but then later calls for both Moon Young and Kang Tae to come with him. The episode ends with a reminiscing of the tale of the ugly duckling, how the duckling was excluded for being different, when in fact, if an adult had taken it in and accepted it, it would have been okay. The boys move back to the mansion, and everything is peaceful, or so we think. Things seem blissful and normal for our couple as they talk about having and not having kids. Moon Young and Sang-tae are also hard at work in the new book, which she got an idea from Sang-tae's picture of the three of them flying on a camper van. Ju-ri and Sang-in, meanwhile, have a thing going on, and Ju-ri is troubled when Sang-in leaves to see his father, who is supposedly setting him up on a blind date. Sang-tae meets up with Director Oh, who asks him to not be scared of butterflies. He mentions that in Greek, butterflies symbolize cure. Sang-tae ponders
That night,
as Kang-tae goes to keep new art supplies in the study, he sees a letter with a butterfly. A cryptic message left by Park Ok-ran saying she is coming for them. He is worried and crumples away the card. The head nurse asks Kang-tae to clear out the patient rooms as she found some dangerous items in the room. As Kang-tae cleans up Moon-young's father's area, he sees a framed picture of the three of them, but the picture of Moon-young's mother is removed. Kang-tae has a conversation with Sang-tae mentioning that they will not run away anymore, and that he will protect Sang-tae. When he says this so earnestly, I feel like something horrific is about to happen. One of the patients, P.L. Wong, is let out for a day to relax and meets up with Sang-tae on the bus. At one point, a drill in the road construction area causes a panic attack as he hears bullet sounds and a warlike setting. Sang-tae covers his head and comforts him and calls the hospital on time. Looks like Pil Wong had been in the old way and had killed many innocents that affected him to this day. Director Oh then interrogates Sang-tae to narrate what happened on that fateful night. Sang-tae scares away a cat, and when he returns to his place, he sees his mother being stabbed with something that looks like a sharp fountain pen. The woman mentions that she knows how to take care of her child and meets up with Sang-tae. She threatens him, telling him he cannot utter a word or she will kill him. Sang-tae tells her she was wearing a butterfly pin and describes it. Kang-tae recalls he had seen the same butterfly brooch in Moon-young's family photo of mom. Ah, fate is cruel. I guess this is why they chose the title Romeo and Juliet for this episode. Should have known this one, though. Kang-tae is horrified and breaks down in front of Director Oh, fearing the woman who killed his mother might be Moon-young's mother, and that he just wanted a normal life. Meanwhile, Moon-young and Sang-tae bicker about what makes one a family. Sang-tae mentions it's about being in the same family register, while Moon-young says it's a family photo. The next day, she and Snag-tae went to take photos as Kang-tae wasn't in the mood. Although Sang-tae practiced lots of poses, she asked him to be himself. Oh. Just as they are about to take the photo, Kang-tae walks in, looking amazing in a suit it looks like Kim Soo-hyun did a cameo in his own drama LOL, and the three take a family picture together. Looks like Kang-tae might have decided to face fate, head-on for Moon-young and Sang-tae. At OK Hospital Sung-hai, the shaman patient has had a heated argument with her father. As she walks off, the nurses mention how her father found her different and sold her to Shamam. The head nurse asks them not to gossip. Meanwhile, Sang-in and Ju-ru are in that confused romantic stage as both of them struggle to reveal their feeling. I swear these two are a breath of fresh air when it comes to how serious our main couple's story is. Kang-tae kind of hints to Moon-young about moving away from this home together as a family. Moon-young thinks it's due to the butterflies that chase Sang-tae,
and says she will fight those butterflies. Oh, if only she knew.
Meanwhile, Sang-tae is slowly but surely fighting the butterfly and is practicing to have the butterfly on his mural. A fellow patient, Gil-dong, hopes that Sang-tae can overcome his fears soon. Kang-tae shows the notes from Ok-ran's room and the note in Moon-young's study, and Director Oh asks him to keep his guard up. Meanwhile, we discover that Sun-hai suffers from DID as a result of her molestation by her father when she was a little girl. This begins to give some strong kill me, heal me vibes. Meanwhile, Moon-young is not pleased with Sang-tae's illustration, as she wants them to depict clearly how they are feeling on their faces. She encourages Sang-tae and tells him that it is tough too for him and that he has to practice much and try to do better. These two are so sweet. Moon-young's father is bearing his death, and Kang-tae informs the same to Moon-young. She does not feel any remorse and asks, how can a person be forgiven of all their sins just because they are about to die? We then see a recount of the tale of the father of the two sisters. She declares how much she hates the father that appears in it, which is more a blind bystander to his girl's perversion, and worse than perversion, more than true. The next day, Sun-hai's father comes to see her. He wants his daughter to be a liver donor as he is dying. She is frightened and says no, and says that more than the abuse, her father's blind eye and subsequent abandonment is what hurt her the most and gave her the deepest scars. The man leaves, and Kang-tae consoles her. Back in the hospital, Moon-young's father starts talking once again, this time to the head nurse, about exactly how he killed his wife. We see a flashback. It was the night he learned he was dying of a brain tumor, and he was drunk. He goes to visit his wife, painting her nails and humming while the radio reports a murder. He asks where the housekeeper is, and eventually comes to know that his wife murdered her. He throws his wife into a fight and pushes her off the first floor, till this Kang Tae entered the room, and he heard him continue. Apparently, Moon Young had witnessed this and saw her dad keep her mom's body in the basement. Eventually, she waits for him when he returns after a walk, when, in reality, he had dumped her body in the river in a suitcase. Ouch. It is then that the scene will cut to after he has died. Our trio is walking away as Moon Young does, seeming to daydream and then departs. She speaks to Kang Tae about selling this home, needing a fresh start. Though in the back of her mind she reminisces about the one single time her father had read her a fairy tale. It was something she can't forget. The next day our journey leads us to the hospital, and Gil Song comes to the ward and congratulates Sang Tai on overcoming his phobia at last.
Uh-oh, this is nasty. Well, stand by, all you people.
They enter inside and find that double-winged butterfly drawn on Sang Tai's mural. An ugly butterfly, may I add. Angered, he starts listing that this is the same double-winged butterfly that is tormenting, the same one that killed his butterfly. Moon Young's eyes open in remembrance as she recalls her mother wearing the brooch and mentioning how it symbolizes Psyche in Greek, from which psycho is derived. She puts everything together and runs off shocked with Kang Tae right behind her. Moon Young runs away unable to contain her shock. Kang Tae tries his best to talk to her, but she says she wants some time alone, and Kang Tae lets her leave. Meanwhile, Sang Tai is having a panic attack under the kitchen counter, but Kang Tae is able to calm him down and let him stay with Ju Ri's mother. Director Oh and Kang Tae search the CCTV, and they are able to see a rather elated head nurse Park draw the butterfly and smile confidently at the camera. Needless to say, Director Oh and Kang Tae are shocked as they think back to all the instances. Creepy woman, I tell you. We see a flashback of her peering at her husband and revealing her identity, much to his shock. She reveals that it was she who placed the steak knife with the man at Kang Tae's previous hospital and told him to kill himself. Wow, she was even there? She says that Moon Young needs to learn a lesson, and she can do that by taking away what's precious to her. Shocked, Moon Young's father dies. This woman is beyond evil. Kang Tae eventually reveals the truth to Sang In, who is also worried about Moon Young. He tells Kang Tae how Do Hoi-jae dropped out of med school to become a writer, and eventually moved in with her husband here in the mansion and had her daughter. After she went missing, many publishers have looked for the last of her novel manuscripts, but to no avail. Director Oh is super guilty for what happened, as he only wanted to protect our trip, but they were nested with the villain right under his nose. Meanwhile, Kang Tae and Moon Young try to work through the pain of this new realization, but it's not easy. Kang Tae eventually reveals about Nurse Park, and Moon Young is shocked. She's not having the best of days, all right. She gets worried and asks him to run away as the brooch is missing, which means her mother was around. She is scared and asks them to run away, but Kang Tae stays put. Sang Tai and Jae-soo come with food prepared by Ju-ri mom, thinking that the couple will not have time to prepare with issues like these. As Kang Tae introduces the truth to Jae-soo, Sang Tae takes in some food for Moon Young. Moon Young cries, heartbroken, and asks Sang Tai for forgiveness. He replies innocently that he will if she eats this food and feeds her. I'm not crying, you are. This is not good for my heart. Kang Tae finds a parcel with Moon Young's book, The Hand and the Monkfish. It was about a mother who had a child that mattered to her. When the baby started eating solid food, she gave it everything and anything. Eventually, when the mother needed help, she discovered that the child doesn't have hands or feet and just opens its mouth to feed, a result of having everything done for her. The book has a note from Do Hoi-jae that it's her favorite, but Moon Young's biggest failure, and failures should be destroyed. Meanwhile, Moon Young takes out the missing manuscript of her mother and calls her press reporter friend from the earlier episodes. The next day, Sang In is shocked to see news reports that Moon Young's mother's final book will be published, and that too by Sang In's company. Then he rushes to Moon Young and tells her that Hoi-jae rang for a meetup and takes Moon Young in his car. Meanwhile, we see Hoi-jae meeting up with Sang Tai. Then, at the next meeting, Kang Tae couldn't contact Sang Tai before Hoi-jae answers the telephone and asks him to come over to the mansion, where he discovered that Sang Tai was unconscious. As he asks her what is happening, Hoi-jae laughs. The truth that she understands, Moon Young sees through and interprets as Sang In, is actually taking her away on Kang Tae's request for her safety. Realizing the truth, she jumps out of the car and runs, but she's too late. Oh my god. I can't wait a week for the rest. Kang Tae walks in worried seeing Sang Tai drugged. Hui Jae taunts him a lot, saying she was curious to see who he'd choose to save, where we get a backstory of what really happened and why Kang Tae's mother was killed. Kang Tae's mother is working as a house help at a creepy mansion. She watches Mum Yong observe as a small injured bird dies, and how she responds, saying it's better to kill it and bring it out if it's misery. Concerned about how Mun Yong's mind works, she talks about sending her to the care facility that Sang Tai goes to, which enrages Hui Jae later on, leading to her killing her. Guess our theory is wrong, but gosh, this is harsh. Naturally, Kang Tae is enraged at how small a reason that was, and with her constant taunting, he strangles her. But he is able to regain himself and lets her go. Hui Jae drugs him, and he falls into a drunken sleep just as Mun Yong enters. Muckraking Mun Yong is about to stab with a pen when Kang Tae stops her and gets hand-injured thanks. Kang Tae then collapses, and Mum Yong is grabbed by the head. Everything is going out of hand until Sang Tai knocks Hui Jae unconscious with a book and literally saves the day in one of the most dramatic and emotional K-drama climax ever. Everything is a sudden wrap-up. Hui Jae is taken away by the police, and Mun Yong is waiting for Kang Tae to wake up. Once she finally wakes up, she is somber and asks him and Sang Tai to leave. He tries his best to persuade her, but she does not listen. Eventually, he speaks to Sang Tai, who says the family won't leave and goes off like that. It makes him quite determined that he and Sang Tai will stay. That night, Kang Tae recounts a touching fairy tale to Mun Yong, one that Sang Tai had shared with him. The story revolves around two brothers who, out of concern for each other, secretly leave sacks of rice in the other's home, fearing that the other might be in need. Each morning, they find that their own rice supplies remain unchanged, unaware of the mutual acts of kindness they've been performing. The moral of the story, according to Sang Tai, is that family always looks out for one another. However, Mun Yong remains skeptical and doesn't fully embrace the lesson. The following day, Kang Tae, with the help of their friends, devises a plan to bring Mun Yong over to Juri's house. They all conspire to have Juri's mother insist that Mun Yong stay for a meal, subtly reinforcing the sense of community and belonging that Mun Yong struggles to accept. Throughout all of this, Mun Yong is perplexed by why everyone around her seems to care so much about her well-being. It's as if she's unaccustomed to being the center of such genuine concern. Meanwhile, Sang Tai and Kang Tae plant a tree in honor of their late mother, a symbolic gesture to keep her memory alive. In a heartwarming moment, they proudly hang a new family photo that includes Mun Yong, signifying that she has become an integral part of their lives. The brothers joyfully talk to their mother's memory, telling her how much they've grown and evolved. Later that night, when Mun Yong returns home intoxicated, Sang Tai eagerly shows her the fruits of his labor. He's been working diligently on creating caricatures of various facial expressions, and he presents her with a special portrait, one of Kang Tae smiling. Sang Tai explains that the drawing captures Kang Tae's feeling, subtly implying that Kang Tae's smile comes from his love for Mun Yong. Mun Yong is visibly affected by the moment and falls into deep contemplation. The next day, she visits the tree the boys planted for their mother, as if seeking some sort of solace or connection. As she walks away from the tree, Kang Tae suddenly yells, "I love you," breaking the silence and running after her with the same urgency and passion that she once showed toward him. This beautiful symmetry in their relationship shows how far they've both come. Kang Tae, now openly expressing his feelings, and Mun Yong, allowing herself to be loved and embraced by those around her. In a romantic twist of fate, our couple finally reconciles, deepening their bond in a truly heartwarming moment. Though not entirely unexpected, Mun Yong is caught off guard when she learns that Kang Tae has left his job and enrolled in college. Meanwhile, Sang Tai decides to pursue his own dreams, telling Jae-soo that he's quitting the pizza shop to become an illustrator. As these developments unfold, Mun Yong starts a new chapter of her life, quite literally, by publishing her book and beginning a creative collaboration with Sang Tai. In the process, she also closes the painful chapter with her mother, severing ties that have long weighed her down emotionally. This moment is bittersweet, as letting go brings both pain and healing. As we approach the end of their intertwined stories, we witness a deeply emotional scene. Sang Tai proudly presents the printed version of their book to his mother, with Kang Tae and Mun Yong moved to tears in the background. I must admit, this scene touched me deeply as well. It's a monumental moment for Sang Tai, representing not only his growth, but also the fulfillment of his long-held dreams. The new book that Moon Young writes mirrors the journeys of our beloved characters. The story follows three figures who flee from a malevolent watch, characters who bear an uncanny resemblance to the people we've come to know on screen. What's even more fascinating is how Moon Young has woven in the stories of the other patients from the hospital, blending them into the narrative both directly and symbolically. After the reading, Director Oh gifts them a camper van, expressing his sense of responsibility for the hardships they endure. This gesture symbolizes a fresh start, a path forward filled with hope. In the final scenes, our trio embarks on a long journey with no fixed destination. Riding their tricycle through the countryside, they experience a rare moment of pure joy and freedom. It's a well-deserved reprieve from all the burdens they've carried, and the happiness radiates through the screen. These characters, after everything they've been through, finally get to live in the moment and savor life's simple pleasures. It's a beautiful, fitting end to their journey. One day, after many days on the road, Sang Tai mentions that he will leave now with Sang In, who he has called in order to work as a full-time illustrator with other projects. Kang Tai worries if he can take care of himself, to which he answers that he surely can. As he leaves, he says how he bongs to himself and Kang Tae is all his, which echoes back to a heart-wrenching moment where a young Kang who's tired of being a parent to Sang Tai says he is for himself. And as they part with their separate but happy life paths, the show ends. This is it for today. Keep watching for more recaps. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.